Hey everybody, welcome to the Bottom Shelf Horror Podcast, where a couple of cheap bastards talk horror over a couple of cheap drinks. Join us today as we talk about the movie Videodrome. Just a reminder, this movie was released in 1983, so that was 30 years ago, so spoilers galore. 40 years ago, wasn't it? 40 years.
Yeah, 40 years ago.
40 years ago. Filmed in Canada, which we were from 40 years ago in Canada. Anyways, yeah. Consider yourselves warned for spoilers.
Yeah, definitely not going to be holding back on them, and we're not even going to think about it. So if we have a spoiler that we talk about, just consider this your warning. We did make a drinking game for this movie as well, which we released a couple days ago, or yesterday. Yesterday or a couple days ago. It's on our channel already if you want to go watch it. Click up here if you want to watch it. And we also made drinks for it, which these are called the Mind Eraser cocktails. We did make other drinks called...
The Dirty Blondie.
Dirty Blondie, yes. Dirty Blondie. So if you want to learn how to make any of those, go watch a couple of the shorts that we released at the beginning of the week.
Yeah. But without further ado, let's move on to the discussion. The main things we're going to be talking about is just the movie, who worked on them. I think we're also going to be talking about like specific scenes in the movie, chronological, and how they happen in the movie. Okay. And then obviously Darwin Awards, we kind of want to bring that back as well.
Yeah, we like to bring that up in the podcast.
Yeah. So I guess the first thing, let's start off with the movie, when it was made by David Cronenberg. It was made in 1983. Yeah. So that was kind of in around the time where I guess movies were made that were almost like specifically slashers. Like Halloween was in 1978, Friday the 13th was in 1980. I think Nightmare on Elm Street was like 81 or
Halloween
82.
Was 78.
Did I say 78? I could have sworn I said 78 and 80 for...
I think you got Friday the 13th and Halloween mixed up
for the dates.
Anyways, yeah, so like you said, this is kind of... when this came out, it was almost like the slasher boom was just starting up. So it was kind of a lot different than what the typical horror releases were that were coming out at the time.
And in saying that, David Cronenberg brought a lot to the genre as far as body horror goes.
Oh yeah.
There's like Scanners, but not a whole lot. But the main other thing is The Fly. So you could call him the godfather of body horror, right?
Oh, definitely. Like I don't know if there's anybody that actually lives up to body horror as much as he does. Like most of his iconic movies are body horror. Yeah. And like they all have that same Cronenberg-esque feel. And even his son has his own... It's different than David Cronenberg, but Brandon Cronenberg also has a Cronenberg-esque feel on his movies. So it runs in the family, clearly.
Yeah. Furthermore, I guess it's also worth mentioning that there's a very good chance that body horror also led to torture porn.
Right. Which
torture porn obviously being movies such as Saw, Green Inferno is another one that comes to the top of my head. Hostel. You could almost consider Terrifier, even though Terrifier is like a body horror or like
slasher too.
A slasher torture porn movie at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, so it's done a lot for the industry in that sense, especially with the whole talk of video nasties. But I think we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the podcast.
Well, that's what the movie's even based on.
Yeah, no, let's do that now. So it's a time period where video nasties takes place, like 1980s. They want to censor like literally everything. Yeah. And Max is the person that opposes it in the movie. So he's the person saying, hey, we're going to release all sorts of like softcore porn on our TV broadcast channel.
I think it's Civic TV.
Civic TV. Yeah. It was Civic TV. So they broadcast that. They really push it. Furthermore, it's kind of flipped here because the violent TV is the thing that makes Max violent, which is something that video nasties especially highly pushed back against.
Well, it's almost ironic, right?
Yeah, it is ironic.
Like, that's kind of the whole point that they're trying to make is it doesn't matter what you watch, it doesn't make you violent. But in Videodrome, it's still portraying that message, but it's almost like shooting itself in the foot because it almost makes it look like he's becoming crazy and violent because of what he's watching. And yeah, because of Videodrome.
When the realistic element to this is just the factors behind it. It's Max himself, or the people that Max surrounds himself with, as opposed to Videodrome in a sense. It's not the actual violence on the TV, it's the people that's associated with Max.
Right, yeah.
Anyways, let's continue on about Videodrome and the plot. For the most part, what happens is he goes on a talk show with Nikki, the girl from Blondie. I forget her name completely.
We'll call her Blondie.
Yeah, we'll
call her Nikki.
Yeah, whatever comes to mind anyways. So Nikki's supposed to be the person who's, I guess, a self-help guru, as she's seen on, like, her... I don't want to call it a podcast. I think it's like a radio talk show.
Yeah, I mean, it's a podcast before podcast sort of thing.
and I love it because Max just asks her out, like, on air, like a minute in.
Yeah.
So anything else you wanted to add to that?
Well, I mean, it turns out that she's a pretty kinky person who kind of combines pain with pleasure. She gets pleasure from pain, and it shows immediately, being obsessed with Videodrome and all of that. Like, she, it's very evident that she's into that kind of stuff.
And it's worth mentioning, I forgot what year Hellraiser was made in. I don't think it was... I think this came before Hellraiser. And to be fair, I am not sure if the script for Hellraiser was made before this. But either way, I think this does have a lot of inspiration or things such as that from Hellraiser. Like, you can see the similarities from Nikki as a person who thinks pain is pleasure, and then Cenobites such as Pinhead sensationalize that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for Hellraiser, it definitely ramped up the pain, pleasure, sex, what is the fucking word I'm thinking of?
Like, the sex appeal?
Yeah, the sex appeal, the turn on with pain, and
kink.
The kink of pain with pleasure. Like, Hellraiser really ramped it up. This kind of... It didn't do it that intensely like Hellraiser, but it was still very evident when it was going on. Yeah,
I guess Nikki's a really interesting character because she's like a self-help guru, and she pushes, I guess, her sexy, kinky pleasure onto Max, and Max is like, man, you're kind of fucked up. And so much so, as she watches Videodrome, which is, on the surface, it looks like just people getting just brutalized.
Yeah, it looks like torture.
It basically is torture. It's like pretty much just straight torture.
Yeah, and but also porn.
Oh,
like, not torture porn in the sense of Saw and stuff that we talked about, but torture porn.
It's literally torture porn, which is fucking neat. Which is, again,
it's fucked up.
Possibly where the genre came from is Videodrome.
Yeah.
But so anyways, she's so much infatuated with it that she wants to go to Pittsburgh to audition for Videodrome.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So anyways, people such as Marsha try to get him to stay away from Videodrome, Max that being, but it's like he can't. He's so infatuated by it.
Yeah, it's like an addiction almost.
Yeah, so the thing is, especially in like the 60s or time periods such as that, like softcore porn obviously was a thing. However, Max just sees like the brutal nature of it, and such as like the horror audience, like you can't really look away from from things that are like so much more brutal in modern age, such as Terrifier 2.
Yeah.
Which I think you said was your favorite movie of last year.
It was my favorite movie last year. And that I think that, like, you hit the nail on the head. It's like, it's so fucked up that you can't look away. And especially when we grew up as kids, like, it was the very beginning stages of the internet. So, like, it was just fucking war zone out in the internet. There was no censorship or anything. You just fucking, you see some nasty ass shit, and it's like, oh god, this might fuck me up mentally for the rest of my life, but I'm not gonna look away. I'm gonna continue watching. And it's like, maybe not the best approach, but at the same time, it's just like human curiosity, right? And it's like, it's so bad that it's like, you can't look away because it's, you don't see it every day, you know?
It's a spectacle, which a lot of what Jordan Peele's movie Nope was about for the most part.
Yeah, and this movie is the same thing. It's what this movie is about.
Yeah.
It's like a spectacle that you can't look away from.
Exactly. Let's move straight into the main, I guess, almost point in the movie where things kind of turn on its head. It's explained to Max that Videodrome is kind of a battleground of some sorts for hallucinations. And Max starts experiencing shit such as VCRs inserted into his stomach, and it looks like very phallic, such as like a vagina.
Oh yeah, well,
yeah,
not phallic, and like phallic is just looks like a penis, but it looks sexual, like it does look like a vagina, like you're saying. In his in his torso. And I mean, I'm gonna go on not a tangent, but just a side note, of how for 1983 it looked super well done, and that's just kudos again to, I don't know who the special effects artist is in this movie, and I kind of I should know that, I should give him credit, but David Cronenberg, he recruited the right people to get this done very effectively, and it looked super well done. And I mean, for the 80s, yeah, it looked super damn good. Obviously you could tell it wasn't real, but it looked pretty damn good.
Furthermore, I guess Brian Oblivion at this point in the movie was, I guess, kind of instrumental to the plot. The only time you saw him was like through VHSs.
On like recordings.
On recordings. Yeah. So he was in the video podcast. I think that's very convenient that he just so happened to be the other person, like on video, right?
Well, yeah.
For the, not podcasts, I think I said, but rather like live show. On the air, on the
talk show.
On the talk show, thank you.
Yeah.
I think it was just very convenient, but whatever. There's things that we move past in a lot of movies, and I think this is one of them. But furthermore, it turns out that he was dead for like years. So it's like he was predicting what happened. It's either that, or I think what his daughter says is that he like lives in the tapes in a sense.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit up in the air, and it could be just he kind of got lucky and just kind of said some generic shit that would apply to so much.
No, I feel like it doesn't.
It was too specific to be that, but he could have just got lucky. But I mean, I think it's more like, it's kind of inexplicable, really, for the context of the movie, and I think we just have to kind of accept it.
Yeah. Yeah, Brian Oblivion is a very interesting character in the movie. You don't see him physically ever. You learn that he's been dead for a while. It's like, I wonder how he did all that. But it must have something to do with him actually living inside the films, which I guess is an odd topic to, I guess, push or like bring up. But so, for example, it's like legacies for the most part. So, for example, people such as, this is a bad example because he's not really on screen, but Wes Craven, you know him for his movies. Like, right. I guess a better example, this isn't even horror, but Alan Rickman, you know him for Snape. So he's forever kind of immortalized with that character.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, that's kind of a good point with Wes Craven too. Even though you don't, like, he's not an actor in a movie, you know who he is because of the movies he made, and like, you don't necessarily know him as a person. Sure, you get anecdotal evidence from people talking about how good of a person he is, and you kind of get a vibe from him from interviews, but like, everyone's got a face for interviews that they put on and stuff, so you don't necessarily get the genuine thing, but you get you know 100% who he is from his legacy that he created through film and just directing those films. Yeah. So like, I know exactly what you're saying.
A little bit further on, he also, later on in the movie, he quote unquote found the evil people, which were his employee Harlan and the other guy, I forgot his name, fuck him, don't care. But he was wearing windows, which is kind of like a screen you see through. I thought that was relatively neat.
Yeah.
Also, I like how it's almost exactly like Video Nasties, but the opposite of Video Nasties. So, for example, Harlan and his crew, they were trying to play whatever they wanted on TV, so it's like Video Nasties where they tried to control it.
Yeah.
However, it's exactly like the sense where they tried to make that content like torture porn, right? And they tried to use that to control the media, which is exactly Video Nasties kind of flipped on its head.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the main ways that Harlan controls Max is by shoving VHSs into his stomach.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways that they control him.
And it kind of makes him, like, kill the people that he worked with so that they're able to, like, control the network.
Yes.
Yeah. And you already mentioned how it's, like, kind of like Video Nasties, trying to take people off the air so that they can play the content that they want. Inserting their messages that are X-rated, and in turn that kind of makes you evil. Like that's the message that people think when they're kind of trying to, flip the narrative and go the opposite way. You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly. I guess later on in the movie, this is probably within the last 15 minutes or so, he goes to kill Bianca because I think Bianca's the only other person that knows about Videodrome. But Bianca, kind of being an expert on Videodrome, flips Max on them. What Bianca really reminds me of is hair done up, kind of stern-ish woman. It reminds me of a lot of the lead character from Censor, where they just have a very video nasty vibe. So again, and that's how the movie ends, with them trying to censor Harlan and the other guy who owns the glasses shop. Don't know people specifically.
I don't remember his name either.
Barry Convex, maybe, something like that. Barry. We'll call him Barry.
Yeah, that might be right, actually.
Yeah. Anyways, it's like Video Nasty's trying to kill those people.
Yeah.
The ending's a little bit left up to interpretation. Max hides inside of an abandoned, I'm not sure if it's a building or a train car, and ends up shooting himself. Long live the new Flesh. Movie ends.
Yeah. Yeah, and the ending, in my opinion, kind of feels like Bianca caused the hallucinations for Max to kill himself using Nikki's image, the same way that Spectacular Optical Corporation did so. And I don't know, there's a little bit of evidence to prove that. It kind of seems like the TV was out of place, it didn't belong, and she wanted to destroy Videodrome, and Max was probably the last person kind of wrapped up in the whole Videodrome aspect. So she wanted to get rid of him, because if she got rid of him, she kind of got rid of Videodrome in a sense. So kind of
it's tying up loose ends.
Exactly. It kind of fits neatly into why it seems like she had motive to get him killed.
A big old bow. It really doesn't make sense that the TV is out there in a place where it doesn't even have power, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like the overall feeling of them constantly using Nikki's image.
Oh yeah, throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, throughout the entire movie, for her to just kind of be almost like a kind of a sex icon to Max to influence him to do whatever.
Well, he was clearly attracted to her and into her and kind of head over heels for her in a sense. And so it was clear why she was being used throughout the movie, and it was probably just visions in his own mind that was making him see her, not necessarily actually there, obviously. Yeah. It was just what he was seeing. He was seeing what he wanted to see, right? Even when watching Videodrome, he would see Nikki in the video, even though she wasn't actually there.
And that's another thing up to speculation. Was she consumed by Videodrome?
Well, that's true.
Yeah, it leads a lot to think about for the movie itself. So my first experience watching this movie, it's a fun story actually. I watched this in a Film 100 class, and I feel like it's the most notable class I've taken just because of how my semester was almost fucked from the beginning. So first of all, I took it because it was an elective. I had to take it, some sort of film media, because of the way the program that I'm in works. By the ways, it has nothing to do with film. The media that I'm in. Yeah. So continuing on with that, there was one total day that I skipped. First of all, we were supposed to be watching The Cabinet of Dr.
Caligari.
Dr. Caligari, yeah. We were supposed to be watching that, so it would have been a good watch.
Classic.
And it conveniently is another famous horror. Yeah. So I would have liked it. But I was going to a concert the next day. So I ended up not seeing it. However, I missed the class, and the next class before that, a week after, I was okay, what do I have to know for this class? So I go on the itinerary to see what's happening, and it was a midterm that's happening. I missed the last class, and I had basically 10 minutes to study for a midterm. I passed the midterm, but not with flying colors. I think I got Maybe I got a 50. Maybe I even got like a 47 and failed. But either way, I remember we also watched another movie that was French, and it was called like Bleu, Bleu. So like Bleu, yeah.
Okay.
And I remember I wrote an essay for that, which I nailed, by the ways, but I had a 90% on the essay, reminding you. And the title for the essay was Blue Yabbity Yabbadai, because I forgot I changed the fucking title for the essay. I'm pretty sure that's what cost a 10%.
So when did you watch Videodrome?
This was like 2017.
But I mean, like in the class, when did you watch it?
It was close to the end of the semester. Oh, okay. I loved the movie a lot when we watched it.
Yeah. Oh, it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Fantastically done.
Oh yeah, there were some things in the semester that we were falling asleep from because it was black and white and like super old, like the train coming at you. And there was other things such as Raiders of the Lost Ark. But it's an interesting class if you have to take an elective. I would do it again. But are you going to learn shit from it? Probably not.
Well, it depends what field you're going into.
Oh, exactly.
A lot of people, like, even content creators on YouTube get a lot out of film class. Like Dead Meat's an example. They went into film and they learned a lot of, production and, like, all that kind of stuff and watched the classics like you're talking.
Yeah.
And they learned a lot about it and even credit a lot of their, knowledge and stuff to that. So it definitely, depending on the field you go into, it can definitely be beneficial. In your field,
in my field,
it's
no,
completely irrelevant. But it's still an interesting course. I think
there's a way that you can like do like videos for like social media outlets, but I don't think a Film 100 is going to get you to that level. Anyways, let's move on to Videodrome a little bit more. So let's talk about the production, movies, all that. So there's shots with analog footage, such as Videodrome. That was somewhat neat to see in a movie. I don't think there was relatively any found footage in movies in that current age.
No. And, I mean, nowadays you get movies that are just trying to have that analog filter on it, like Skinamarink, for example. One of the new movies we covered on our previous podcast that we watched in January, but like movies are trying to get that analog look by using filters and shit, but this one was actually genuinely analog, which it just looks and feels a lot more genuine when it's the real thing for obvious reasons. And so it's nice to see in older movies when it's actually used and it's done effectively too.
Furthermore, something that they used that was really unique at the time was their effects with body horror. You kind of could see a little bit of it in The Thing, which was, I think, 82. But this one, it's really grotesque, fleshy. You see unnatural objects, such as a gun coming from somebody's stomach or like a stomach vagina.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, the body horror is my favorite aspect of this film. Apart from, like, it's just a good story being told in general. I enjoyed the story and the plot. But the body horror is the main grab for attention, in my point of view, and why I like watching it. And even, like, the scenes where it's near the end where he's killing himself, where the gun is coming out of the TV and, like, stretching the TV apart. Yeah. It's, like, cool effects, right? And it's something unique that you don't see in other movies. The only thing that I can kind of think of is like A Nightmare on Elm Street when he's coming through like it's a bed sheet or whatever they use, and he's coming through it in the dream. But in this movie, it's kind of the same effect, but for a TV, and it's again just done very effectively, and it looks so unnatural, but it fits the narrative naturally. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. A few of my other favorite things in the movie were on the terms of like body horror and things like that. There was a scene where Max was feeling up a TV and it was basically just like pulsing and had like veins.
Yeah.
That it just feels so unsettling.
It's like, oh, what the fuck is going on?
Especially with the walls of Videodrome, they look like flesh. They look like the inside of like a body or something.
Well, even the colors they used in general too, like it was in some of the Videodrome, it was like very red and just bold colors.
Yeah, it was like a red, like peachy color almost.
Yeah, and that was all that was there, is a room with just those colored walls, and one person in the room and just getting like
whipped for like 50 minutes.
Yeah, so it's like, it's very unsettling, just everything in general working together, including the sound. Like, this movie doesn't stick out to me for its score or anything, but the sound, like, it helps create that unsettling feeling, I guess.
Yeah. Acting, it was all right. I honestly couldn't tell you another James Woods movies I've seen. Like, he's in Family Guy a lot. That's about all I know. I think he's dead now. But either way, Debbie Harry, that's the girl's name from Blondie.
Okay, yeah.
Playing Nikki Brand.
Yeah.
I feel like that was an interesting take on a character for sure, especially being like a self-help guru who has like a lust for pain with sex, so she's an interesting person for sure.
Yeah.
No characters are really written like that a whole lot, where they're just very like conservative about what's seen on TV and things as that, and want to help people, where in the bedroom they're like a freak.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there isn't really, like you said, there isn't any standout roles. They did fine. They filled their roles and what they needed to do. Nobody really stands out as like a holy shit, they fucking killed it in that role. But I don't think that's necessarily even the point of this movie either. Like, the point is the message and the like body horror and, you know, all the visuals and stuff and the special effects. They're not really too focused on the acting. Like, they wanted you to do your job and that's it, not take away from what you're seeing and feeling, you know, because that's the main thing that you want to focus on when you're watching this movie, is the visuals and what you're feeling. Yeah, especially if you're trying to do a performance that wins an Oscar, in the sense where I feel like that would take away from the body horror just a little bit, and the body horror is the main thing that kind of makes the movie. Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of what even made it a classic or cult classic. I'm not sure if it's considered classic or if it's just a cult classic or what, but I mean, it's very respected in the horror genre. Yes, so there's a reason for that too. So let's move on to the Darwin Awards, because we haven't done those in a while. Yeah. I mean, we did it last, what was it, for Tetsuo? For the Darwin Award? Do it for Tetsuo, yeah, that's right. But, yeah, I mean, we used to do Darwin Awards for every drinking game video we put out, but it's been a lot of new releases that we covered, so we don't do Darwin Awards because it's spoilers, kind of, to do Darwin Awards for new releases, so we like to avoid those and not give too many spoilers for it. So. Exactly. But this, like we said in the beginning, is 40 years old, so we don't feel bad for spoiling it. Mm-hmm. So the first nominee is Max, and he's nominated because he put a gun inside of his fucking stomach. I mean, do you need any more explanation? It's just the first thing that he thought of, to put a gun inside of his fucking stomach. Yeah, cool. I got a vagina on my fucking stomach right here. Let me just put a gun in there. Yeah, that's a good spot for a gun. You could also argue maybe him trying to seek Videodrome. Speaking of which, that's our second nominee, and only other nominee is Nikki, for wanting to try out for Videodrome, even though in the first place, it's probably gonna fucking kill her. Let's be honest here. Well, yeah. And second of all, it's probably gonna ruin her reputation as like a self-help guru. Yeah, and I mean, especially in the 80s. That's the thing. Oh yeah, for sure. As a self-help guru, it's gonna fuck that up for her. I think at this point, well, I guess those are only two nominations, so let's kind of talk this out on who we think deserves it more. Like, for Nikki, well, let's start with Max. He's the first one we talked about. With Max, he, you know, Videodrome's almost controlling his brain. Like, what's the tagline for Videodrome? Long live the new flesh, I believe. No, there's a different one. First it controls your mind, then it controls your body, or something like that. That's a tagline on posters for sure. All I think about is just long live the new flesh, because they say it a lot, and it reminds me of which Candyman movie is it, where it's farewell to the flesh? Yeah, is it the third one? Maybe it's the third. Maybe it's the second, I don't know. Either way, the point is, Videodrome, it's in the tagline, I think it's on the movie posters, it controls your mind. So is Videodrome the one making him put the gun in his stomach, or is it him doing it on his own? So you can kind of play that card and see why he's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
With Nikki, it's like she wants to do it because she thinks she'll get pleasure out of it and have a good fucking time doing it.
Yeah.
And sure, if you're seeing it on TV, you assume that it's done in a safe and controlled environment, right? Like, sure, they're getting whipped and stuff, but is it actually really hurting them?
And the thing is, Max also says, like, yeah, they're bad people. You probably shouldn't audition for this fucking shit.
Yeah. And, I mean, even if you do assume that it's done in a safe, controlled environment, if she, like, is she just throwing away her career as the self-help guru radio host?
Assuming she actually exists and isn't a figment of Videodrome's imagination.
Yeah. And so my vote is to give it to Nikki because of those reasons.
I would second that.
Yeah, okay.
Assuming she's real, give it to Nikki.
And also assuming that Max is under Videodrome's control in a sense. Like at that time it's kind of hit and miss on when he is controlled, but like we can assume that he is.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why the fuck are you putting... Well, first of all, why the fuck do you have this opening in your stomach?
Yeah.
He's hallucinating it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if he's hallucinating that, you can assume he's hallucinating the gun being put in there. So, I think Nikki is the safe bet.
There's a fair argument for both.
Yeah.
But I'd say Nikki.
Yeah.
Overall thoughts of the movie. Out of 10, what would you rate it, Tucker?
Out of 10, I'd give it a solid 9.
Okay.
Because I do like the story being told. It was, in a sense, ahead of its time. I won't say ahead of its time because of movies like The Thing that were coming out at the same time as this, and other movies that did very good effects as well. But I guess it's not ahead of its time, but it's a pioneer in special effects and body horror and all of that.
Yeah.
And I just love Cronenberg's films in general. Like The Fly, I love the body horror in that. Even Scanners, like, it has some iconic scenes that even if you've never seen the movie, you know, because they're just iconic. But yeah, Videodrome is another one of those that you just love, that I love to watch, and it doesn't miss the mark for me in a lot of ways. The only reason I can't really give it is a 10 out of 10 is maybe the acting could have been a little bit better to get it, like, to elevate it that much more.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's not a lot making me to prevent it from giving it a 10, I guess. But yeah, solid 9 for me.
Yeah, I would give it 9.5 even. So the main reason for that is I like how there's a lot left up to interpretation, but it's not so much that you can't figure it out where it's a David Lynch movie and it's just fucking mess.
It's all questions.
And then you're just like, I don't know what the fuck I'm watching, but it was great.
Kind of like Skinamarink too.
Yeah, kind of like Skinamarink too. Yeah, exactly. But anyways, a lot of the things I feel like have very clear answers and they're easy to see, but it's not very direct. I like that, how I could be, I'm so smart and I found out what this movie means, or at least it means to me. I mean, obviously it could be something completely different to David Cronenberg or anybody else that watches it.
Yeah.
But I feel like my reasoning's fairly set in stone. So in saying that, I would give it a 9.5. However, I think that's it for today.
Subscribe, like, share, all that fun stuff. Get us around, pass us around.
Passes around like Nikki Brand
in Videodrome.
Videodrome. All right. With all that being said, cheers to fears.